You're listening to Country Squire Radio.
Welcome to Country Squire Radio. I'm Bo.
And I'm John David.
JD.
Hey, Bo. Good evening, man.
Man, good evening to you, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Squire Select evening, man.
I know.
This is always fun. You know, we get together kind of after work and loosen our, I was about to say loosen our ties up.
We don't wear ties.
We don't wear ties. Who am I kidding?
Have I ever told you about how I feel about ties?
No.
Oh, well, let me just say really quick. Ties are terrible.
Yeah.
The idea of ties, I sometimes refer to them as the noose of the business world.
Yeah.
They make absolutely no sense. My argument always is that if men are required to wear ties, then women should be required to wear heels. And if you think that doesn't make sense, it's because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Men shouldn't be able to wear. I mean, men should not be required to wear ties.
Shouldn't be required to do it. Yeah, that's an interesting parallel. You know, I'll pull out a bow tie occasionally at maybe church or something or some event, and you know, and a straight necktie if I don't know if it's just customary for a certain event, but man,
sure.
the least amount of times I can wear a suit, particularly in this humidity and heat. Man, I'm just against it.
Well, you know, the thing is, I was back in my my heyday in my kind of, you know, more traditional business lifestyle.
Yeah.
I was all about wearing the suit. I would suit, no tie. That's the way to do it.
I agree.
Now, there you go. Welcome to Country Squire Radio.
We're going to talk about pipes at some point.
That's right, man. Hey, you know, speaking of pipes and such, I thought that this might be kind of fun to talk about real quick. You know, we like to really kind of help support local pipe clubs, no matter where your pipe club may be.
Yep.
And right now, our local pipe club, we're going through kind of this evolutionary period.
It's an exciting time.
Yeah,
it really is.
We're becoming like legit.
Yeah,
which is pretty awesome.
Like bylaws and bank accounts and
names,
officers and names.
Yeah, that's the thing. Right now, we're trying to. There's a big email chain going back and forth with different name ideas.
Yeah,
and you know, for most of this stuff, I've kind of been almost like just a fly on the wall.
Right.
But it's just very interesting. And if you're part of a local pipe club, and actually if you're part of kind of the origins of a local pipe club, you kind of know what this kind of stuff is like. But it's just really fascinating to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
because I mean, we become this legitimate organization. We become more powerful than just a couple of guys chilling out, guys and gals chilling out with pipes. It's you know, it becomes a little bit more litigious. Is that the word?
I don't know, but just the formal structure of it is interesting. And just to give you a little background on this as we're talking about it, you know, we're in Jackson, Mississippi.
That's right.
You know, if you can't tell from our accents, we're in the deep South. You know, but Mississippi is such a deep-rooted, closely connected place.
That's right.
It's the 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon thing.
Oh yeah.
In Mississippi, it's like 2 degrees to your grandmother kind of thing.
And your grandmother is Kevin Bacon.
And your grandmother, she might be, you know, but I guarantee you, she knows who your dad is, what he did for a living, whose kin he is to.
That's right.
What he made on his ACT score, and who makes the best apple pie in, you know, Noxubee County.
Sure. Oh yeah, exactly.
That's just how it is. So anyway, we kind of started this thinking, you know, we're going to have the Jackson Pipe Club, and that's obviously what we've been calling ourselves,
right?
And branching in that direction. But we realize we've got so many faithful friends across this very closely knitted state.
Yeah.
And also, we even got feedback from Mississippians who love their home very, very much, but have moved off to other states.
Right.
And so, I mean, we've got people in Washington, D.C., and, you know, in the Midwest, and even Texas, and, you know, different places that are so closely connected to Mississippi just because of that deep-rooted stuff that we always exude. You know, they want to be a part of Mississippi's Pipe Club. And so anyway, we're kind of starting to dabble with some different names on how to recognize that. And, you know, we love Jackson, want to honor it. Obviously, Bo and I are committed to our city, but
very much so.
You know, also, you know, man, we've got a lot of friends all over. So how do we honor Mississippi in this Pipe Club's name? It's been fun to see. Yeah.
And so hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to kind of share that. I know it's a little bit more of a personal thing since it's local, but at the same time,
it's kind of fun.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And just the whole kind of the bones and the structure, and just like I said, there's kind of that evolution of how a pipe club becomes a pipe club.
Yeah.
At some point, I think once we have fully experienced it,
right?
You know, from a legitimate standpoint, I think that's definitely a subject we'll want to talk about.
It'd be great to get feedback from other people that, you know, in other parts of the world that have done stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's great.
Well, good stuff. Well, man,
fun.
So we're sitting here, we're looking at this bourbon and the whiskey. Is there anything that we need to talk about before we can start busting open these bottles?
Why would we do that?
All right, let's do it. Well, you know how we are.
It's Monday night.
Of course, this is a Squire Select episode.
It is.
If you've never tuned into one of these before, the way it works is that we tend to pair up pipe tobacco with, and then it could theoretically be anything. We've done teas in the past,
Right.
But more often than not, we actually take whiskey,
Right.
and we pair up pipe tobacco with whiskey.
Can you blame us?
Yeah, I mean, and for that reason, we do an after-hour show instead of the traditional morning show.
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, it gets a little bit looser than normal, but
Which is interesting. I just if he's listening tonight, I want to call out Crimson Rat,
yeah,
our buddy in Memphis, because he had to come to Jackson for some business stuff not too long ago. Stayed at my humble home. Probably got covered in dog hair while he was there.
Oh,
but anyway,
yeah.
he left me this gorgeous bottle of Blanton's while he was there, and I still have not opened it because I'm just looking for the right opportunity. It's one of those
You
things.
should have
like,
brought it over tonight, man.
maybe I don't know. After
I see how it is.
I'm looking for the right opportunity. I don't know.
I got you. I see what it is. This has got to be like just got engaged type situation.
I don't know. I mean, not that that's going to happen anytime soon. But anyway, hey, I've got a request for you, Bo.
Yeah.
Do you have water in that bottle back there?
I do. Yeah.
Can you bring it over in this direction?
I'm gonna let you manage it though.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, I figure what we'll do, one way or the other, is in between beverages, we'll kind of cleanse the palate a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we've got some bourbon whiskey, and actually the first up to bat
Yeah.
here,
What we got first here?
we got bourbon Kentucky Vintage,
Right.
original sour mash. This is I found this at our one of our local wine and liquor. In fact, I think it's actually the one that's right next to you guys.
Yeah. Wine and Spirits on Lakeland Drive. Really great. If you're in the Jackson metro area, you need to stop by.
And we've talked about it before. The Squire is like right next door to a coffee shop and a wine and liquor store. So you're
and
covered.
a Chinese buffet. So there's all your sin in one row. Well, most of your sin anyway.
yeah. There you go. So anyway, so bourbon Kentucky Vintage.
Yeah.
And this is as the live show can actually see, this is the very end of it. So I have been enjoying this bourbon.
So what are your thoughts on it?
Not fully my favorite. However, I found it to be really good. Not necessarily a staple in any kind of for one thing, it's not incredibly cheap.
Right.
And so it's not a good cabinet bourbon from that standpoint.
Any idea what that went for a bottle here in Mississippi? Of course, taxes nationwide are going to be different here and there.
I wish I knew. Honestly, it was one of those things where I got it, and I've been making a point to try a lot of different bourbons.
Yeah.
With the idea of, okay, this is great, and I'll just kind of keep it in, when I get down to that last dregs, I'll keep it in the cabinet for a Squire Select.
Right.
I think I've told myself that about 3 times, and we never actually,
Whoops.
you got to get to it.
Well, it's interesting. This bourbon has a lot of notes. It's interesting. When you drink this particular bourbon, Kentucky Vintage is kind of, like you mentioned, it's on that fence of it's pretty good, or maybe it'd be a good bourbon to keep around to mix with Sprite and Coke and that kind of thing.
Sure.
But anyway, I think I've seen all kinds of different reviews on it. The reason I asked about the water is I want to try this bourbon, and then let's put a little splash of water and try it as well.
All right, that's a good idea.
Because I've heard that kind of opens it up a little bit. So you want to take a shot?
There you go.
Oh,
Okay.
That's how we're doing it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, it's got kind of a medicinal nose to it. It's smooth. Maybe a little peaty. And I even get, I'm more on the tobacco end, so I would, if I had to pick an adjective, maybe some leather or oaky stuff.
Yeah, I could get that.
It's
I
kind of
definitely
interesting.
get that.
Let's put a little shot of water in there and see what
Let's
happens.
do it.
Yep. You want to do it?
No. You're managing.
I got it.
Sorry.
Barkeep. I get to be a shopkeep for a living. Tonight I get to be a barkeep.
That's right. That's right. Well, you got the tobacco. I've always seen you as kind of a barkeep as well.
It's fascinating. I really my job is very akin to a bartender. And we've talked about that a lot. But we've talked about this quite a bit actually. But you sit across that tobacco bar from folks and light up a pipe with them, and man, folks will tell you whatever you want to know.
Yeah, man.
It's pretty interesting.
All right, cheers.
All right. Now, see, to me, that opened it up a little bit.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
That's much better.
Well, and I note that on scotches, which we'll get to here shortly in our next round. But with this particular type of whiskey, it's gonna be a little harsh for me personally on the finish. And I think with just a dab of water inside the glass as well, it kind of softens it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But, one thing that's noted multiple times on reviews is that, and I don't know if I get this necessarily, but a lot of folks really pick up with this particular whiskey, the Vintage Kentucky, notes of caramel once it's been opened up with that water. And that's fascinating to me. I can get little notes of that, maybe a little more butterscotch than anything. But there's something about that that's almost like kind of caramelized candy-like, which is fascinating. So anyway, tonight, to pair with this tobacco, I'm actually pairing it with Lancaster, which is one of our tobaccos
makes some sense.
at the Country Squire. Lancaster has those kind of caramel coffee notes to it. Some people get a little butterscotch in there. It's a nice aromatic. It's pretty heavily cased, but it's not syrupy. Which is nice. So it doesn't, it'll build a nice cake on your pipe, but it's not going to leave a Slurpee at the bottom of it. You know what I mean? So,
well, and it makes sense too, because you mentioned the caramel taste, and I remember when I first was trying this critically, because that's the thing, I don't ever actually sit down and drink whiskey critically unless we're doing it for the show. Something's just like, all right, this is just bourbon, and like I either like it or I don't like it, and then like I'll mix it with this, mix it with that, and with this, I always thought it was like, okay, the taste is a little bit too intense to really use it as a cocktail, but it's also not quite like my go-to, I guess my palate, so to speak, where I want to live. But I did notice kind of a little bit of a sweeter tones that smooth out with the water.
Well, and it's fascinating too. That mimics my pipe preferences a lot as well. Like, I don't smoke a whole lot of heavy aromatics. I love aromatics. They definitely have a place in my rotation. But like, with Lancaster, it's got a really nice, caramel tone to it that is very obvious as you smoke the tobacco. And it's one of those things that, I don't want caramel every day. I want it, pretty regularly.
Oh, yeah.
But not, not every day. And so it's something I'll kind of save for a treat. It's kind of a nice after-dinner smoke.
You're putting me in a rough spot, man, because obviously this is a great pairing, but it's Lancaster. I mean,
man, I didn't think about that.
Long-time listeners of the show know that I have a very
the Yorkist in you bristles at this.
I can't. I mean, it's for me to sit here and praise Lancaster is just detrimental. I cannot do it. But I will say this. A couple things. One, I think that the pairing it makes extreme sense because Lancaster is one of the most caramel blends that is out there.
Right.
From that standpoint, and origins of Lancaster's name, not the origins connected with the War of the Roses, but with kind of the Lancaster company, it makes complete and total sense. And I think it would be a good pairing to somebody who is willing to, sample Lancaster and drink it with this bourbon. I got to tell you, one of our listeners tweeted me, I guess a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying like, all right, take the BS away. Do you like Lancaster or not? Like, it was just, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's something to that effect. Like,
and what's your answer?
Well, I can't remember.
If this didn't have a name on it.
I think I said don't tell JD, but it's pretty good. But I don't want to like put that out there.
But I mean, the Yorkist blend would be a lot better.
Well, and that's the thing. Actually, I think the tweet was accompanied by when are you going to step up and you keep saying you're going to have a Yorkist blend. Where's the competition?
Well, we've got to get to work on that. Yeah, we dabbled a little bit at some point and kind of came up with some ideas, but it's probably time to put the pedal to the metal.
Well, and I've tweaked. I had the original concept, but now I have kind of the other thing we talked about. And so we need to. I mean, at some point, actually have on our list of future episodes an Art of Blending 3. Where no more hiding back. We'll just have the conversation of me saying, "This is what I want. This is what I like. What can we make it happen?" And just kind of pull the curtain back to make it happen.
So overall, and we're taking kind of a rabbit trail here, but your Yorkist
Squire
blend,
Select. That's what
Squire Select. That's what we do. So your Yorkist blend would be. Bitter with notes of revenge. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
See, I don't know. I see how it goes. No. That would make sense, but no. We'll talk about it on.
It's like when the folks come in the shop and they get the Presbyterian tobacco in the tin. I'm like, man, it's great. It's got very bold, interesting notes, and it's got that finish of judgment on the end. It's just really
wow.
It's pretty great. But the Anglican tobacco, it would be like, well, it doesn't really taste like much of anything.
Oh, and you can say that.
What do they? I can because in our tradition, you can do whatever you want. Just don't block the aisle. Just don't block the aisle. What do we? I guess we need to finish this up.
No, it's good. It's very, very good. All right, next up. Now this is great.
Here, hand me your glass. I'm gonna pour some.
Yes, please. Cleanse the palate right there.
Agua.
So we got Oban. Is it Oban or Oban?
I think it's Oban. Yeah. When I went to Scotland, I believe they pronounced it Oban.
Okay, so this is great. This is actually, of course, we actually tried this. Well, for me, for the first time, was together.
Yeah.
It was last week.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were kind of having a little strategy session on the porch.
Oh, dude, it was a blast. But I thought, okay, I really want to, we were hanging out. We hadn't hung out, off air in a while.
Yeah.
And I want to get something kind of special.
Yeah.
That we can kind of try together.
You nailed it, dude. Yeah.
And I knew I wanted a good Scotch. And so I went in there and I kind of asked. I was like, I had this one and I had another one. I cannot remember what the other one I grabbed was. It was something I'd never tried before. And I asked between the two which one was a little bit peatier. Because I know that you kind of like the peat. I typically like the peat as well.
I like smoky. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is what they recommended to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you, man, it's really different from any other Scotch that I've ever tried before.
Yeah, yeah. Oban, this is actually a 14-year-old, and so I'm not as familiar with this particular brand because I, just have other favorites that I've kind of gone to. But as we tried it the other night, and then obviously as we do a little research on it, this is a Highlands tobacco. It's a Highlands Scotch whiskey single malt, and so. It aged 14 years, and then it's one of those things that it's got some of that peat on it, but it's not nearly as smoky and heavy as a lot of those Islay blends, like the Taliskers and whatnot of the world that have just all that almost soily taste to them. This is a little more. I guess you'd call it floral or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we.
It's got a nice notes of grass and things like that to it, but. And peaty, but it's not that real deep smoke that's on it. So,
I need a reminder.
anyway,
So
yep, let's try it out.
Yeah, just much sweeter than any other Scotch that I've ever had.
There's something about what Scotch does to my tongue that's just magic.
Do you remember the original Herbie the Love Bug?
Oh my gosh! Wow! If my mom is watching this, when Herbie drove over that cliff into the water, when I was, what was I, maybe 3? I cried. I sat there and bawled, to the point where, I was so in love with Herbie. And when he went over that hill into the water, I was so terrified that my mom had to come hold me. I'm dead serious. That was a real thing. That happened.
So, yes, you are familiar with Herbie the Love Bug.
I've experienced lots of therapy because of that. Yeah, anyway.
That's okay. I think a lot of kids had a similar reaction to when Optimus Prime died. So, I mean, it's kind of the same.
That's fair enough. Yeah,
the same.
Right.
Now, there's that scene in one of the Herbie the Love Bug movies.
That's great.
Where Herbie is losing the race because, the villain who was, Mr. Banks from Mary Poppins.
Wow, this is going back.
Yeah. So he's winning the race, and he's got a sidekick henchman in the car, and they're so ahead that they decide to go ahead and pop open the champagne.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna win, so it's let's go ahead and pop open the champagne. And his henchman is drinking the champagne. He's, you know what I love about champagne, sir? And then the driver is like, if you tell me that the bubbles tickle your tongue, I shall probably kill you. Anyway, you just reminded me of that.
Golly. Wow. We're going to have I would love to. I've got to watch Herbie again. That's incredible.
Dude, the old school stuff was pretty good.
But I probably need someone to hold me when I'm doing it. Is that okay?
No, I'm not.
You won't be that person.
I'm not that person.
We referenced,
I'm
was
sure
it
your mom
last
would
week
be.
we referenced the Brave Little Toaster? Was that me that referenced the Brave Little Toaster?
I feel like we've referenced it before, but not last week.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. In something recently I've referenced that.
Do you know that's a
movie.
franchise?
No.
Yeah, no, there are several this Brave Little Toaster goes to space. It got weird.
That's kind of trippy.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know how he went to space.
The toaster was toasted.
I just somebody was. All right, so let's talk about
That's
Oban.
fantastic. Yeah, this got again, notes of kind of that peat and I would say kind of a floral, maybe a little medicinal taste to it, but it's not overly sweet, not overly smoky by any stretch of the imagination. It's got a real, kind of crisp finish to it, which I really like. It's just got that, kind of signature Scotch nose to it too when you smell it in the glass. I love these little glasses that we're drinking out of actually because they force your nose to get in the glass. And one day, Bo, we'll have to get the Glencairn glass, which is the actual. Every liquor kind of has its signature go-to glass.
Right.
You've got brandy snifters and brandy snifters and martini glasses or whatever. But Scotch has a glass called a Glencairn glass, and it's this interesting, almost half hourglass shaped glass. And what it does, it forces you to turn the nose up on the glass very, very high, so your nose gets deep in there, really close to the liquid, right before you bring it in. And so, anyway, just a real kind of a different experience.
Yeah,
but
these are actually from our Kindred Spirits whiskey tasting at the Celtic Fest.
Oh, that's great!
Last year, and the year before that.
Also catered by, I think, Wine and Spirits on Lakeland.
There we go,
which is great.
They're getting a lot of shout outs.
Man, yeah, shoot. We'll send the invoice later. It's all right.
Yeah, no, this is. I would say this is definitely a good Scotch for spring.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, what we've got here tonight to pair with this is Cornell and Deal 3 Friars. This is their 2-ounce tin.
Ooh, wait, have we done? I don't think we've done a tobacco talk on 3 Friars.
We have never done this before.
Yeah.
Now, as you probably are aware, our audience, we've got a tobacco called 3 Nuns. It's actually what C.S. Lewis smoked, and semi-recently reintroduced. We've got some folks that are really into 3 Nuns. They say the newer one isn't quite like the older one. That's pretty much a blanket statement for any tobacco that's been reintroduced. But 3 Friars is kind of Cornell and Deal's, pivot in that direction, trying to, mimic some of the characteristics of that. Virginia, Perique, a heavy amount of burley, just a great overall tobacco. So I'm gonna open this up and let you smell it here. It's a beautiful tin, just like anything with Cornell and Deal. You feel like you're getting a really quality product just from the packaging and everything. And it's always, Cornell and Deal tins are always really soft when you open them, and just very pleasant. Give this a whiff.
Yeah.
What you think?
I feel like I just walked into a barn.
Hay and grass.
Yeah, especially hay. Like it takes me back actually to my my uncle's barn.
Yeah.
Maybe he was smoking pipe tobacco.
That's a great way to put it. Well, maybe the horses were smoking tobacco. It's interesting that tobacco is known for those notes of hay and fresh cut grass, which is interesting. So it does almost have that kind of pasture type note to it, which is just kind of unique.
Is that from the burley?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. You get that some from the variety of Virginias that are in there. There's some brown and ribbon cut long Virginias in there, which are going to probably provide most of that. But the burley and the Perique, it all marries together to make a really good combination. Yeah, it's good. When I taste this tobacco, I get more of the kind of soft, sweet Virginias along with the burley flavor with this. Not as much of the Perique. It's got plenty of Perique in it. You can taste it, but it's more forward on the burley, I think.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so I guess all that to say, not particularly peppery, but very smooth. Lots of kind of soft, sweet flavors on your palate. You still have that kind of overnotes of the Perique, which provides some pepper, but it's not overly done. So, which is kind of interesting. Anyway, I thought it would pair nicely with the Oban 14 because you've got those notes of the peat and smoke there, but it's just not. It's in the background. It's more of a secondary thing, which me personally on the 3 Friars, that's what I get.
Now Cornell and Deal, you mentioned just kind of the look of just the tin overall.
Yeah.
And we've talked, Cornell, they seem to have a much more consistency to their overall presentation.
Yeah, and it depends on the tobacco line that they have. They've got several different lines, and again, you've got, if you've ever seen some of their aromatics that are, I forget even some of the names because I don't smoke a lot of their aromatics, but the 3 Friars, the Bayou Morning, Billy Budd, some of those tins, they just look really, you can even kind of hold it up there for the viewers to look. I mean, it's just a very simple, kind of brown labeled tin. Looks really classy. Something that you see in a top shelf counter or something like that. But their monitoring, their marketing and all that stuff tends to be a little more muted than maybe a McClelland and stuff. Of course, I say that, and then you've got stuff like Cornell and Deal that is got a giant green and red fox on the front of it, or goodness sakes, they've got a tobacco called Exhausted Rooster, which is fantastic. So anyway, it's stuff like that. But Cornell and Deal puts out a great product. I mean, every time I open one of their tins, I feel like I'm doing something very special for myself.
That's good, man.
Yeah, it's
That's
good. But I think the notes in this tobacco pair really well with the Scotch. It's got the notes of the peat and the smoke, but it's more in the background, I think.
Yeah, an interesting pairing. Interesting. What was it specifically that caused you to kind of go to this one for Oban?
I think it was kind of some of that grassy. And that's exactly, it was funny because as soon as you smelled and got the tobacco kind of close to your nose, that was the first thing you went to. And it's kind of that grassy, hay-like thing that it's got going on. Pilgrim's Muse at our shop is very similar to that as well. It's kind of Perique, but in the background, and it's got those kind of notes of fresh cut hay. It's funny to even talk about flavors that way, but it really is. You smell the tobacco, and you taste the tobacco, and you are immediately transported to kind of a pastoral environment. So
that's good.
It's pretty great.
Well, man, great pairings for tonight's Squire Select.
Pipe question of the week.
The pipe question of the week this week is brought to us by the New Orleans Pipe Show. If you head over to nolapipeshow.com right now, you can actually register. You should have actually registered before now, but you can do it right now if you have yet to do so. This is a big pipe show in New Orleans, the first of its kind in that area. We are so excited about it because not only will you be there, but we will be there as well.
Ow!
That's right. So head over to nolapipeshow.com. That's NOLA pipeshow.com to register. They've got a full list of also some retailers and different brands that are going to be there as well.
Yep.
Some pipe carvers, and you are going to not want to miss it. So again, nolapipeshow.com for that.
And I will mention too, as well, just because I was chatting with Toby Ducote, who's in New Orleans, kind of one of the
spearheading this thing,
organizers of this deal. Toby's a great friend of the show.
He's a boss,
and of the Country Squire as well. But if you are a retailer or a pipe carver, man, get in touch with these guys. Sign up for a booth. I mean, there's tons of interest. Like, the tables there are going to be reasonably priced. This is a very unique pipe show because it's in the middle of just such a vibrant historical city, and you can smoke on site, which is just really incredible. So if you're a carver, you just don't want to miss this thing. So, man, get in touch with them. Go to the website, sign up for a table, and you won't regret it.
Not at all.
Be great.
Not at all.
Yep.
All right, this pipe question makes me really, really happy. Colton Miller actually wrote into us, and along with this, he also sent us some quick fire questions, which we'll get into later. But he writes, he says, I stumbled upon a YouTube video of John David and a fellow named Butch.
I love Butch.
We love Butch. I believe smoking a whiskey case blend called Happy Hour. Mm-hmm. As a big whiskey fan, it intrigued me. Where can I find this blend, and is it possibly available from the Country Squire?
I feel like I'm being hoodwinked. Well, I mean, Happy Hour is a blend that we intermittently work on here and there. And it's funny because it kind of goes in and out of when the folks at the shop are drinking whiskey.
So wait, is this one of yours, or is this...
It's a blend that we have at the shop that is in process of being made.
Oh.
Right. And so you can't get it right now at the Squire. But it's one of those things. We had a Happy Hour blend. To be honest with you, we weren't particularly excited about it, and so we retired it, but have been kind of intermittently working on the recipe for that. So
interesting.
Anyway, it'll come back out. There's some great whiskey flavored tobaccos out there. Briar Fox has a little whiskey on top of it. Of course, Irish whiskey from Peterson is great. And you've got some other ones that have notes of that too. So, check those out. But anyway, Happy Hour, hopefully soon to come. It'll be, real reasonably priced. And, with most whiskey tobaccos, you want to, kind of feature some of those Virginias, maybe a little bit of Cavendish, but, more on the kind of sweet, natural flavor with the whiskey kind of coming through subtly. So anyway, we're working on it, but it's not here yet.
That's great.
Yeah.
What a great question for this episode too. Butch, of course, is a local member of the local pipe club.
That's right.
Also, he's a vlogger and has done several different videos at the Country Squire with John David.
It's been a lot of fun. Butch just comes in, he's like, you want to do videos? And so we just started, taking some videos, and then before we knew it, we had kind of set up a channel for the Country Squire. You can find us. It's called Country Squire Tobacconist on YouTube. You can subscribe. But it's just me and our friend Butch, just kind of sitting at the shop when things are slow, just messing around. And it's been a lot of fun.
What does Butch do?
But Butch works for the state.
Fair enough.
Right.
All right.
But he's at the shop when he can be, and it's anyway, he just does a great job. Really close personal friend, and such a tender spirit. Got an incredible voice for radio. That guy needs to be on some kind of radio station.
Oh, I'd totally
so.
have him on the show if I
But-
could trust him behind the mic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know exactly.
But definitely check him out on YouTube.
That's great.
Great question, Colton. And if you've got a pipe question for us, send it in, csr@podastery.com. And again, it doesn't always, even though we call it the pipe question of the week, it doesn't have to be about pipes. It can be about tobacco just like this. So
Yep.
again, csr@podastery.com.
Quick Fire with the Squire.
All right, now Colton did it up right.
Yeah.
Not only did he send us quickfire questions, he
Yeah.
actually sent us 3 different batches of quickfire questions,
Oh wow.
each with a theme.
Okay.
So for the next couple of weeks, we'll actually be pulling from his quickfire
Wow,
questions.
Colton, very indebted to you, bro.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, man.
That's awesome, man.
So the first one, even though this was not the first one he gave us, it
Okay.
was the first one I wanted to do because I thought it fit with tonight.
Yep.
This is a few of Colton's favorite things.
Okay. Good.
So-
Oh, I like that. That's
Yeah.
great.
So if you can kind of imagine the sound of music, these are a few of my favorite things.
Ba ba ba.
It's
Yeah.
a Squire Select,
You
people.
know, this is great. I like that Colton sent some of his favorite things in. Other listeners, please do that. That's
a
a
great
That's a great
idea.
idea. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Bourbon or scotch?
Scotch.
Ooh, this is tough. Typically I go to bourbon, but I guess if I could choose, I'd choose scotch. So yeah, scotch.
Yep.
All right.
It's more expensive, but it's just the right answer.
We'll see. We'll see. Old fashioned or Manhattan?
Manhattan. I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
My 95-year-old grandfather that recently passed away, that I was pretty close to. We used to take little trips when I would go visit him during the summertime throughout Texas and whatever, and he would always order a Manhattan wherever we went. And I was just so fascinated with this drink because it was so old school. And now it's neat because that particular cocktail is kind of coming back around.
Yeah.
But anyway, Manhattan. Drink it with a full stomach. I will say that.
Well, I got to tell you, so I have a similar type of story. I mean,
Yeah.
my grandmother on my mother's side has become so like perfect at making Manhattans that my family has renamed them Mammy Hattans.
Oh, I like
After
that.
her,
I
yeah.
like that.
And so actually when I go to her house, somebody had asked me to make a Manhattan and I failed at it terribly, miserably.
Right.
And she tried it and she was like, "You want me to make that for you, sweetie?"
Sweetie, let me make that Manhattan for you.
And so yeah, man. No, my grandmother is fantastic. But I got to tell you, between the two, I mean, definitely an old fashioned. Now
Got to go with the old fashioned.
I always order an old fashioned without the cherries.
Yeah.
I like a little bit of an orange twist into it.
Okay.
Muddled with the bitters, but beyond that, you
Yeah.
know, some places will just put a bunch of cherries or a bunch of cherry juice in it. I don't want it that sweet. I want
Yeah.
it to be a bourbon cocktail.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so
Bourbon forward on that. Yeah. It's funny. I love how a lot of these, the Prohibition era, early 20th century cocktails are really coming back in force.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that's become much of a thing. So I'm thankful for that.
IPA or stout.
IPA. All of these questions are so easy for me to answer.
That's good.
It's really funny because I just have very strong feelings about this, but I don't drink a lot of stouts. It's funny. I just don't. But the crispness of that real overly hoppy IPA, particularly, like a New Belgium Ranger or something, or here in Mississippi we've got a local brewery called Lazy Magnolia. They have one called Timber Beast, which just really, really rich and good. Lots and lots of hops there, and man, I just eat that up.
Up until about a year and a half ago, I would have said IPA.
Yeah.
But we had a really cold winter. I don't know if it was 2 years ago or last year. But
Yeah, last year.
Last year, then it was. I really started getting into stouts.
Some of the stouts.
Because
yeah.
I mean, it gets cold outside. You want a little something that's going to be a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
And I started kind of discovering these coffee stouts and these chocolate
Yeah.
stouts, and
Yeah.
I was like, dang, this is opening up an entire new level of beer for me.
Yeah.
And so I was really, really digging it. So I'm gonna have to say stout, but it does depend on the weather.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And again, I can kind of compare some of these to my tobacco preferences as well.
Sure.
I enjoy Latakia, but those Latakia bombs, that are very, very Latakia heavy, up front, that's something I don't want all the time. It's
Yeah.
just not. We've got several listeners that's their jam, and anytime they pull for a tobacco, we've got some folks that if it's 58% Latakia, that's cool, and for me that's just not the case, and I kind of feel that way with a stout and definitely a porter. I don't crave a porter, but whenever I do drink one, I tend to appreciate it.
Right on.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
What's next?
Bacon or steak?
This is probably the most difficult one for me, but I'm going to have to go with steak. Now, if it's steak wrapped with bacon, then you have a win-win.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with steak wrapped with bacon as well.
Okay, fair enough. Don't make me choose between steak or bacon.
There you go. If I had to have one without the other, I'd go steak, but steak wrapped with bacon. And then biscuits and gravy or country fried steak.
I have to go with biscuits and gravy.
Gotta do it.
That's just me. You know, I guess it's a Southern thing. I don't know. Maybe there's biscuits and gravy in other parts of the country, but I come from a long line. How do I put this without sounding ridiculous? I probably can't. I come from a long line, Bo, of biscuit makers.
Huh? Right on.
Like, my grandmother made exquisite biscuits. My mother makes exquisite biscuits, and I'm sure her grandmother and her mother made exquisite biscuits. And so now it's my turn to learn the trade.
Yeah.
And so that is my thing. I am a biscuit person.
All right.
If you can make a biscuit, you've learned how to bake. And so that my focus has to be on the biscuits and gravy. Nothing against a country fried steak, but I'm biscuit friendly.
I don't like country fried steak at all.
Yeah.
At all. And I got to tell you, biscuits-wise, I love me some biscuits. Now, with gravy, I used to be a big biscuits and gravy guy.
Yeah.
Now, if there's gravy as an option, I'll take it on the side. But typically, I want to, like, put my
And we're talking white gravy.
Yeah, and I'm just not a big fan of the white gravy.
Okay.
I mean, I get that's the thing, but it's just something about it these days doesn't settle well with me. And plus,
fair enough.
My mindset is if I can put honey in that biscuit, why would I want to put anything else in it?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
But here's kind of a funny, quick
bacon in the biscuit is the real key.
Oh.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, go ahead.
Bacon, egg, and cheese.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. So here's the thing about biscuits. Like, and I hope this does not offend our international listeners, specifically across the pond in the motherland of London,
right?
Or England,
Great Britain.
There we go.
Right.
So my wife and I don't know why, and I'm trying to rack my brain. I can't figure out where this came from.
Right.
But at some point, we thought it was really funny how, or we found it very. No, we'll just say it. I mean, like I said, I apologize if this offends you. We thought it was really funny how they say biscuits and jam, and so we would occasionally make this, oh yeah, biscuits and jam, like this terribly offensive accent, which again, I apologize.
Viewership in Great Britain is plummeting through the fall immediately. Right.
You know, and so...
Our friends in England and I would assume Scotland and Wales too that refer to cookies as biscuits, don't they?
Right. Well, this is the thing. So
right.
we actually, we did this kind of thing back and forth every once in a while. Like somebody would mention biscuits or somebody would mention jelly or something
right.
like that.
Right.
Oh, yeah, biscuits. Oh, get that jam in there. Yeah, biscuits and jam.
It's such an Australian accent.
I know.
Anyway,
it's awful. It is definitely more of an
There's so
Australian.
many people offended right now.
Well, originally it was more of kind of a Cockney accent,
right,
but
I
it
get
evolved over time into an all. You know how these things happen.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But anyway, so we had this competition, which was if ever we were to meet someone from Great Britain,
right?
The first one to get them to say biscuits and jam would win.
So has that happened?
I have taken home the trophy.
That's great.
Yeah, it was at a business event. We had some contractors come over
right.
That I was working with, and we actually went out I was taking them out to dinner,
mm-hmm.
and we were sitting out, we were having a good time. My wife met up with us. And I realized this was a golden opportunity because, of course, they're from Great Britain, and we were talking about traditional English breakfast.
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, that's great. Do you ever like you couldn't say biscuits and jam. That was the problem.
Okay,
like,
so you had to kind of lead them into the trap.
You had to lead them into it.
Is that right? Okay.
I could not get anywhere. Like they said biscuits as part of the breakfast, but then I couldn't get them to like solo that out without saying it. So later, the topic, I was like, "Well, that's awesome. What about tea? Don't y'all have tea time over there?" And so you guys are like, yeah, we got tea. And I was like, all right, well, what about like, what would you eat with tea? Like, I've heard all these crazy stories. And he goes
at this point, they think you're insane.
Yeah. And so finally he says biscuits, and I'm like, oh, now would it just be that, or would you put anything on? It's like, oh no, you get biscuits and jam.
Oh no, biscuits and jam.
And so I took home the gold.
And immediately you felt like you were in Mary Poppins or something.
Love that guy, by the way. In the event that he figures out it was him, and he puts like this. You were awesome.
That is great. That is great.
All right, great quick questions.
Yeah, thank you, Colton.
You are awesome, Colton. And we'll be looking forward to the next couple of weeks. We'll be doing your quick fire questions. So thank you so much for sending those in. And if you've got quick fire questions that you would like to send us in, including your favorite things, do so at csr@podastery.com.
Let us know your favorite things.
Your thoughts, your comments, listener feedback.
would like to also mention that our friend at Teakey2, T-E-A-K-E-Y, the digit 2.
The letter 2.
The letter 2, which is a
the
thing
letter 2,
now.
my friend.
After a couple glasses of whiskey, the 2 becomes a letter.
That's right.
Yeah, he says, your next morning drink pairing should be coffee. He's just lots of different blends and roasts, and he hashtags smoky, roasty, and earthy. I think that's true. I don't know. I think there's a lot of unexplored territory there, at least for our show. So
that's good.
Good suggestion.
That's really good. Listener feedback this week. We got Back to the Flucher, which I can only assume is Mike Flucher.
I love Mike.
What a great handle.
Yeah.
Back to the Flucher.
It took us forever, though, to get his last name. We butcher a lot of
Well,
people's
I feel like
last
if we had seen this, we would have figured it out.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Anyway, he writes in, he says, my favorite podcast, period. Such an amazing podcast. It becomes a part of my weekly routine. Bo and John David always have an interesting topic to talk about, whether it be the types of tobacco and famous pipe brands, to just sitting down in the evening once in a while and pairing up tobaccos with their favorite beverage of choice. If you are a new pipe smoker and you are looking for some great info laced with a little bit of humor and faith, CSR is the place for you. Wow.
Man, Mike, that's great. Thank you so much. We
awesome.
we appreciate you too a lot, brother. I mean, absolutely. We've made so many great friends through the show, and Mike is definitely amongst those.
Absolutely.
For sure. So,
Absolutely.
Next one is from iTunes. The Real Comsby. Did I say that? The Real Combsby, probably.
That name sounds familiar too.
iTunes, The Real Combsby. He says, favorite time of the week. I love this podcast. In fact, I love the whole Podastery network. Ow! I really like how they talk about topics that relate to the pipe smoking world, but are always not necessarily strictly about pipes, i.e. thoughtfulness, stress relief, theology, etc. Well done, gents. Keep at it. Thank you so much, brother.
Man,
we appreciate that.
That's great too. And we try to bring you the best quality product that we absolutely can. I was just thinking about the fact that even though you and I are sitting here indulging in alcohol live on the internet,
right?
When you think about it like that, it sounds a little like why would you do that?
I know. Why wouldn't you do that?
Well, that's there you go. But a lot of thought and effort goes into this. I mean, for one thing, John David is, just the go-to intellectual on this type of stuff. Especially, he's a local treasure and just a genius when it comes to pipe tobacco.
Easy now.
Both as someone who's a connoisseur and a blender himself. And then for me, for my part, I try to put in as much about this audio in entertainment function that I know. So basically what I'm trying to say is it's all JD. And I really appreciate him for that.
Whatever, dude. This is great. It's all our listeners. We have a lot of fun.
This is true. You guys are awesome, and we really appreciate that feedback, especially on iTunes. If you have not gone over to iTunes and written us a review, you can head over there right now. It's a great way to help support the show. It doesn't cost you a dime, and we love getting that feedback. Like, I cannot stress enough how much that helps fuel us up.
It helps us a lot.
With what we're doing.
It really does.
Whenever I go in, I try to check maybe once every day, maybe every other day, just to kind of gather up for the different shows that I do.
Yeah.
And just reading those and just kind of seeing that you guys are enjoying it, because that really, it speaks to, there's a lot of different reasons why we do this show, and I'd say chief among them is to provide a really entertaining and informational show for you guys.
Yeah.
And so to hear that works, I mean, man, that's just like internet high fives. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. And, more than anything, we're just honored to be a part of your life, too.
Absolutely, man. Of course, you can email the show, csr@podastery.com. Find all of our contact information, T-shirts, and more at countrysquireradio.com. And I think that's going to pretty much do it for us tonight.
I'm going to go watch Herbie the Lug Bug.
I'm telling you, man. That was and I'm telling you, the villain, I guarantee, I'm positive about this. The villain was Mr. Banks from Mary Poppins.
If you haven't seen Herbie the Love Bug, please put that on your to-do
Not
list.
the remake. The old stuff.
No. I'm talking about the old stuff.
The stuff you'd have to go to like the library, because the library still has VHSs. Because this is only available on VHS.
No, that's
sure.
what we're talking about. I'm sure. I mean, certainly this can't be purchased on Blu-ray.
No. No.
I'd be disappointed if it could be.
Do you think VHS will ever make a comeback like vinyl has?
No, not at all.
Never. All right. All right, man. Well, let's go get some sleep.
See you, brother.